And so where specifically will you be in terms of
you're
capital
next.
requirement?
Next. Boring bonehead questions are not cool. Next.
Thank you. The first question is related to the Model 3 reservations, and I was just wondering if you could give us a gauge as maybe some of the impact that the news has had. Like of the reservations that actually opened and made available to configure, can you let us know like what percentage have actually taken the step to configure?
We're going to go to YouTube. Sorry, these questions are so dry. They're killing me.
Thank you. Our next question is from Galileo Russell with Hyperchange.
Okay. And I'm not an expert in battery pack technology, but it seems that a lot of people are speculating that the specs for the semi-truck, even I believe the CEO of Daimler said it breaks the laws of physics. So I'm wondering, is this just a linear...
He doesn't know much about physics. I know him.
Yeah, so
I'd be happy to engage in a physics discussion with him. I actually studied physics in college.
So yeah, my question is that just a linear improvement in your battery technology, or is there some sort of new breakthrough or different platform that the Semi and Roadster are going to be built on?
Like, even if we didn't improve our battery technology at all, we could achieve a 500-mile range truck. At all. We're going to do better than 500 miles. The problem is, like, people get too focused on, like, what's happening in the space of a few weeks or a few months. This is, it's an old maxim of investing. You should not be focused on short-term things. You should be focused on long-term things. And we have no interest. We have no interest in satisfying the desires of day traders. Like, I couldn't care less. Please sell our stock and don't buy it.
I completely understand your frustrations, and I'm frustrated too on how myopic we are right now. They also say that great years are made out of quarters, and great decades are made out of years. So everyone's short-term focused in some ways, and volatility has a way of shaking people out, even that are strong and want to be there. And so,
okay.
Anything you can do to help in the near term on that, I think is helpful for the sub. That's it.
I think that if people are concerned about volatility, they should definitely not buy our stock. I am not here to convince you to buy our stock. Do not buy it if volatility is scary. There you go. We got this like laughable lawsuit recently from some company ironically called Nikola. It's like Nikola is suing Tesla. That's hilarious. Fate loves irony. But they're like suing us because the way the trucks look, which is absurd. Nobody's buying a semi-truck because of the way it looks, or because it's got like a wraparound windshield or whatever. Please. First of all, I think modes are lame. I mean, they're like nice in sort of quaint, vestigial way. But like if your only defense against like invading armies is a moat, you will not last long. What matters is the pace of innovation. That is the fundamental determinant of competitiveness. And for any given company, if the rate of innovation, let's say, like, competitors, maybe they come out with something new every 6 years. We're maybe every 2 to 3 years. So if our rate of innovation is, let's say, twice that of any given competitor, then it is simply, and this is true of generally of companies in any industry. Whichever company has the highest rate of innovation, unless that company is actively killed by its competitors in some way that's nefarious, or shoots itself in the foot, it will at some point exceed those competitors. Like, this was obvious that this would occur with Amazon and Walmart, because Walmart's rate of innovation was negligible, and Amazon's was very high. The outcome was obvious a long time ago.
I was wondering, with Waymo's plans to launch an autonomous taxi service in limited markets this year, if you could give us an update on the Tesla network and any details surrounding the launch date or geographic rollout. Thanks.
Sure. So, I mean, thank you for an interesting question. the long-term goal, where things are obviously evolving towards is a shared electric autonomy model. So in order for this to obviously, for the whole sort of system to work, you need all the pieces in place. You need to have full autonomy, level 4 or 5, what do you want to call it? And obviously a lot of cars on the road, and then build the software infrastructure behind that to enable shared autonomy, so to enable people to share their cars and be able to offer their cars as effectively kind of a robo-Lyft or robo-Uber. It's sort of like a combination of, like, I guess, Uber, Lyft, and Airbnb type of thing, where you can own your car and have 100% usage of autonomous electric car. You can say it's available generally to anyone who wants to use it when you're not using it. You can recall it at will. You can restrict usage to only friends and family or only users who are 5-star. This is like the obvious thing that's going to happen. But in order for that to be in place, we have to obviously show full autonomy. We're making really good progress on that front. I believe that the current production of the vehicles that we're currently producing are capable of full autonomy, with the only thing that would really be might be needed, or maybe is probably needed, is a computer upgrade to have more processing power for the vision neural net. But that's a plug-in replacement, a thing that can be done quite easily. So I think we're really well positioned and are building the foundation for having millions, ultimately tens of millions of shared autonomous electric vehicles, which you can, like I said, decide not to share if you don't want to. And then in places.
And specifically on the timing, the timing though, do you have any details about, or when we could even expect to learn more about the timing of this service?
Well, the hardest thing to predict about the timing is regulatory approval. The thing that's tricky with autonomous vehicles is that autonomy doesn't reduce the accident rate or fatality rate to 0. It improves it substantially, but the reality is that even though we think autonomy, even current autonomy reduces the probability of a death by 50%, which would be incredible, because it's like if applied broadly, there's over 1 million, I think 1.2 million automotive deaths per year. And how many do you read about? Basically, none of them. However, but if it's an autonomous situation, it's headline news. And the media fails to mention that actually they shouldn't really be writing the story. They should be writing a story about how autonomous cars are really safe, but that's not the story that people want to click on. So they write inflammatory headlines that are fundamentally misleading to the readers. It's really outrageous. So, and this would be true even if electric cars were, if autonomous cars were 10 times safer. So that instead of 1 million deaths, you had 100,000 deaths. There's still going to be, people who will still sue and say, hey, you're responsible for the death here. And it's like, well, the 90% of people who didn't die are not suing. They're still alive. They just don't know it. So we got to deal with that, and then obviously regulators respond to public pressure and the press. So if the press is hounding the regulators and the public is laboring on misapprehension that autonomy is less safe because of misleading press, then this is where I find the challenge of predicting it to be very difficult. yeah, it's really incredibly irresponsible of any journalist with integrity to write an article that would lead people to believe that Tesla autonomy is less safe, because people might actually turn it off and then die. So anyway, I'm really upset by this.
Yeah, really interesting answer. Thank you.
But I can also say from a technical standpoint, I think we'll probably be ready by the end of next year.
Awesome. And then one more quick thing on production capacity and speed of the Fremont line, because this is something you mentioned a lot, it seems. And in the last quarterly conference call, you mentioned the max capacity was 700,000 cars for Fremont, or somewhere around there, and that was S, X, and 3. And so we recently got a report from Reuters saying that Model Y production would start in November 2019 at Fremont. And so I'm just kind of curious, with the Semi and the Model Y launching next year, like, where are you actually planning on assembling these vehicles?
The Reuters report is based on nothing. Like, I don't know where that came from. We will not be starting production of the Model Y at the end of next year. I would say it's probably closer to 24 months from now. So 2020 is a more likely prospect for Model Y. Early 2020. And the production location for Model Y has not been decided. We're really crowded here at Fremont. I don't know where we put the Model Y production. So it's difficult to imagine that. We just could not fit the Model Y production at Fremont. We're jammed to the gills here. So one thing I know for sure is not here. It is crazy packed, and we'll try to figure out what the optimal location is for Model Y production, but it's not here. Not here at Fremont.
Okay. Awesome. Great stuff. So I'm also wondering, are you guys going to let Porsche beat you to market with a 350 kilowatt-hour supercharger? Because I know you've mentioned, V3.
We'll keep going until the questions are not boring.
Yeah, I can keep going. So
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, so the
350
kilowatt. The 350 kilowatt charger from Porsche, they mentioned they're rolling that out. On the last call, JB seemed to indicate that you guys were sort of going to keep the status quo with your supercharger technology, but Elon, I know you mentioned that there is a V3 supercharger, so I'm just trying to get some clarity on whether you will be improving your supercharger technology or not, and if there is a V3.
Oh, we're definitely going to be improving our supercharged technology. The thing about a 350 kilowatt charger is it doesn't actually make a ton of sense unless you've got a monster battery pack or have a crazy high C rate, in which case your energy density is going to be poor. So it's kind of cockamamie. We think maybe 200 on a per car. Also, I don't know if they meant 350 kilowatts for a single car. That's really pretty. You're gonna frag the battery pack if you do that. There's no you cannot charge a high energy battery pack at that rate unless it's a very high kilowatt hour battery pack. So something along the I think I don't know, JB, like a couple hundred, 200, 250 maybe.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely sort of power level that we've discussed and explored, and some of it also comes down to an optimization around utility versus cost and trade-offs in the car itself. You kind of hinted at that, Elon, but there is a trade-off fundamentally between charge speed and essentially range or cost of battery.
Yeah.
And we look at that pretty carefully. We understand the trade-off, and we could design cells in a pack that could charge at faster than 300, 400 kilowatts, but it's not a very useful trade-off to the customer. That's
most people don't understand the difference between energy and power, even really.
Yeah.
Energy, energy is essentially amounts to range, and then power is kind of like your peak acceleration, basically. The rate at which you consume energy. So, really, it's more important to have. It's more important to have long range than it is to have a super fast charge time. And you can sort of think about this in the devices that you use. Like, would you rather have a cell phone that lasted 2 hours, but it could charge in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, let's say, but it only lasted 2 hours. Or you'd like a cell phone that lasts 2 days, and maybe it takes an hour to charge.
Thank you. Our next.
Yeah, but